Bima was excited when Uche's mother, Mrs. Ibuchi, invited her over for a friendly conversation as soon-to-be mother and daughter. In her frantic quest for the perfect outfit, she turned her room into a chaotic display of discarded garments. Clothes were scattered across the bed, and the floor, a vivid testament to her indecision and haste. After much deliberation, she finally settled for a teal jumpsuit and rushed out of the house. She was surprised to meet her aunt, Sarah, there. Although her aunt and Mrs. Ibuchi were good friends, she wasn't expecting to meet her there that day. Mrs. Ibuchi directed her to a seat and examined her closely as if she were a statue. I heard your mother has children with 4 different men, Mrs. Ibuchi said even before Bima sat down. Bima was perplexed, and she momentarily stood with her mouth agape. She shot her aunt a sharp, quick, venomous glance. Why did you look at your aunt like that? Mrs. Ibuchi asked. Did she lie? No, ma, Bima answered. Uche knows everything about my mother. My mother is a very good woman who was just unlucky with men, she said in a quivering voice. My dear, Mrs. Ibuchi responded, I believe an apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So you and Uche can never get married. I thought it unfair to tell you over the phone, so I asked you to come. But seeing how you looked at your aunt, I am convinced you are a terrible person. You may leave my house now, Mrs. Ibuchi said, showing Bima the door. Bima couldn't understand what had just transpired between her and Mrs. Ibuchi. She called Uche immediately after she left the house to tell him what had happened, and he told her they needed to talk. When they met, Uche told her he had tried unsuccessfully to convince his mother and elder sisters that she was a good person because of the lies her aunt had told his family about her. Being the 4th child and only son in his family, Uche learned early that it is futile to argue with his mother and elder sisters. Bima, I cannot marry you in these circumstances, Uche said. I don't want to put you in a hot zone. You're too good for that. Are you breaking up with me? Bima asked, her voice trembling as she spoke. Uche cleared his throat and said, No. But God told me to do what my mother wanted and allow him fight this battle for us. And what does your mother want? Bima asked. She wants me to cut Cece and eventually marry her. Wow! So all this is because of Cece. Is there anything Cece wants that she won't get? Since we were teenagers, there has never been anything Cece has demanded that she didn't receive. And now, you're telling me that God is going to let her have you too? That means one day, Cece might wake up and demand my life. And everybody will just kindly ask me to give it to her. Bima began to sob. Come on, my love. It will come to that. I won't marry Cece, I promise. I'm just going to play along for now. In 6 months, God will change my mother's mind, Uche said, trying to console her as she sobbed. A part of Bima believed him, but another part thought it was the silliest thing she had ever heard. She begged him to leave her alone to think, and he did. She decided there and then that she would move in with her friend Emily. She had always wanted to share apartment with Emily since her business picked up, but her uncle insisted she stay in his house until she got married. When she got home, she went straight to her room and began packing her clothes. She was closing the second suitcase when Cece walked in. Bima, you don't have to go. It was all Auntie Ibuchi's decision, Cece said, feigning concern. Really? And you couldn't say no? Does my happiness hurt you so much that you covet everything that I have? We used to be so close, Cece. When did I ever wrong you? Everything your father has is in your name. What more do you want? Bima responded angrily. Cece sat on the bed and said, I love Uche, and it's my only chance at happiness. I hope you understand, she said while playing with her nails. Oh, I understand. But if Uche makes you happy, what about Habe? Bima asked. Cece couldn't answer this, so Bima rolled her suitcase out of the room. When Cece's father returned from his travels 2 weeks after and learned what has happened to his niece, he was furious with his wife Sarah and with Cece. Although Bima explained that it was entirely Uche's decision, he knew his wife and daughter well. Uche decided to go out with Cece a couple of times just to convince his mother that he had broken up with Bima. He quickly noticed how incompatible he and Cece were. First, Cece wasn't a Christian. And then he was put off by her lack of kindness and the fact that beyond designer brands and names of artists around the world, she didn't know anything of substance. When Uche told his mother, she said that Cece was the right woman to spice up his life because he was too churchy. 4 months later, when it seemed Uche and Cece were getting along so well, Ada, his elder sister, and his mother started making wedding arrangements secretly. Ada and Mrs. Ibuchi visited Oroma's shop in GROH to look at fabrics. Oroma was Ada's best friend, and Mrs. Ibuchi had supported her after she lost her parents at a young age. When they arrived, they found Oroma just as she was getting off the phone, visibly upset and filled with anger. Mama, Ekan is at it again, Oroma said to Mrs. Ibuchi, her voice thundering. Chika just called to tell me that she saw him with a woman at a filling station on Sars Road. I have told her to follow him, and I'm going there right now. I swear, I will break that girl's head. We will go with you, Mrs. Ibuchi said. I also want to slap some sense into Ekan. So, they rushed out of the shop and jumped into their cars like three antelopes fleeing a hungry lion. Oroma was well acquainted with the place Chika had directed them to. The house where Ekan has taken the woman belonged to his friend Sylvester, who had recently relocated to Canada with his family. They parked their cars some distance away from the house and walked to the gate. The gateman was so shocked to see Oroma that he blurted, Madam, Oga Ekan cannot come here today. Oroma grabbed his shirt, threatened him to be quiet, and demanded the back door key, which he gave to her before running back into his house. They opened the back door and quietly entered the house through the kitchen. As they stepped into the sitting room, Oroma spotted her husband's shoes and trousers on the floor. Soft music was playing from the guest room, and she immediately realized that Ekan was inside. She pounded on the door like an angry bull. Ekan, who didn't expect to see his wife, rushed to open it. Oroma pushed him aside and charged towards the woman who had jumped up from the bed. She slapped her and was about to slap her again when Ada's scream stopped her. She turned to see that Mrs. Ibuchi had fainted. Cece quickly grabbed her gown and handbag and fled out of the room and the house without her shoes. What have I done? Mrs. Ibuchi kept repeating this after being resuscitated. Oroma was confused until Ada informed her that the woman they had just caught with Akan was the same one they had been campaigning for Uche to marry. A few hours later, Mrs. Ibuchi called Bima to apologize and promised never to interfere in her and Uche's relationship again. Bima was happy, and she was curious as to what caused Mrs. Ibuchi to change her mind. But just as she dropped the call, Uche called her. He was excited that his mother and sisters had approved of his marriage to her and was surprised to know that she hadn't heard what happened, so he told her. Feeling shocked was just one of the many emotions that swelled within her when Uche dropped the bombshell. She was still trying to process everything when she received a call from her uncle informing her that Cece almost committed suicide. Spoilt brat, she thought as she rushed out of her apartment. When she arrived at her uncle's house, Cece was in her room, coiled up in a corner, wallowing in her tears and shame. So suicide is the only thing you could think of, Bima said, almost in tears, as she entered Cece's room. Cece stood up and said, I didn't know what else to do, Bima. Nobody will believe me. I didn't know who Mr. Akan was until now. I can't carry this shame, Bima. It is too much for me. Bima drew close to her and embraced her. Then let Jesus carry it for you. He will fill the hollow, the emptiness inside you that makes you think you need more things and more men to be truly happy. Do you think he will? My life is ruined. Even my mother looked at me as if I were the most disgusting thing in the world. Well, Jesus doesn't view you that way. If you truly repent, he will forgive you, Bima said. She then shared the story of the woman caught in adultery and that of the Samaritan woman. Once she sensed Cece was ready, she led her to Christ. Afterwards, she brought her food and water because Cece was weak from hunger and crying. Some moments later, they lay side by side on the bed, chatting and laughing into the midnight like they used to when they were teenagers. Bima, I am sorry, Cece apologized again. Do you think we can go back to the way we were as teenagers, as sisters, without any bad feelings between us? I believe we can, Bima said and yawned. They soon fell asleep, each of them dreaming of a brighter tomorrow. Thank you for watching, awesome people. Please like, share, and subscribe. And I would like to know your thoughts in the comments below. What would you have done if you were Bima? And would you have forgiven Cece so quickly?